Hey guys, Michelle Lim here. I'm coming to you from very, very sunny San Francisco. It's very hot outside. Even coming from Australian, I think it's super hot. I'm sorry if I look kind of gross. I just walked home from the gym, but I wanted to get this video out before it got too dark. So yeah, I'm kind of really hot. Anyway, so I wanted to dedicate the next couple of videos to talking about this book that I just started reading, which I borrowed from the library, called Mastering Stand Up. And at first, when I saw the spine on the bookshelf, I kind of thought, oh, maybe it's like one of those old books because I had read a book a couple of years ago when I had just started, which was called like How to Write Stand-Up Comedy or a Guide to Stand-Up Comedy, and it was written in the 80s. And while I found it quite useful, I was kind of like, it's kind of old, I think comedy's progressed a lot since then. So picked this book up, and I wasn't really expecting much of it because I thought it might be kind of old, but it actually was only released last year, so that's pretty exciting. I just started reading it. It's got very recent references, which I really like. It's written by a guy called Stephen Rosenfield. If you cover up the RO, it even kind of looks like it's written by Seinfeld guys. This is it. Anyway. Sorry, Stephen, if you're watching. I apologize. I'm sure this is great book on your own merit. So I wanted to share my experiences reading this book and kind of talking about ideas which I found really useful in this comedy book. So this book is split into a couple of different parts. Um, I'll just read out the sections for you so you can know what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. So we have part one, beginning our work together, which is a bit like a preface, which I'm going to summarize for you now. And then we go into the forms of stand-up comedy. And then we go into how to write or create comedy material. And then we go into how to perform comedy material. And the last part is getting undeniably good, which I'm sure that we are all hanging on the edge of our seats to look at. So what I liked about this book, or what I've read so far, is it kind of reminded me about why I started stand up in the first place. It talks about how stand up is as equally compelling as television or theater, but it has this unique ability to capture the moment. Whereas theater or movies take so long to write and produce and perform and finally get released. Stand up is like instantaneous. I mean, you could write a joke on something that happened that morning or that week and perform it that night, and it's got that sort of very current topical um, value, which is really great and something that is quite rare in like other forms of performance. Apart from that, it also talks about how you can do so much with stand up, even if you are only like one person on a stage with a microphone. You don't need all of this um, extra production value. If you're really good at stand up, you can tell those stories, and people are equally as captivated by you as they would be if they were watching a film or a play or a theater piece or something like that. So it kind of reminded me, what was so great about stand up and something that I had actually kind of forgotten or I hadn't really thought about in a little bit. The other bits which I really liked from the what I've read so far, I've got my little tabs, and I feel like Oprah is I'll just read out a couple of sections that I really liked. So it talks about this bit about how you have to get really, really good at stand up for good things to happen. And it says, I don't mean good once in a while when you give a terrific performance. I mean good night after night after night in small clubs and big clubs in your own town, in towns and cities across the country, in front of packed audiences and sparse audiences, in front of people who know you and like you, and in front of complete strangers, in front of great audiences and dead audiences, opening a show, closing a show, following a comic who bombs, and following a comic who kills. When you get pumped up and when you feel like crap, you get the idea. So basically, it's saying you can't just be good on like one night in front of a really great audience and think that you're good. You got to be good consistently, whatever the conditions. And I think that's something that I've kind of forgotten because often when I perform and it's kind of a dead audience, I'm like, it was okay, but the audience was kind of dead and I didn't do that well. But if the audience was better, then I would have done better. And I think that's something that I need to take onto myself and just, you know, um, try to be consistently good as opposed to trying to wait for external factors to affect my performance. Also, I forgot to give my shout out, which is like a totally dedicated shout out to my one new subscriber, Jennifer. So thank you so much for subscribing. Um, okay, other bits that I really liked um, is, well, I guess, It's kind of corny, but I marked this bit, which was number 12 of the things that you should do as a stand-up, which was to have fun, you know? And it says, when individuals become an audience, a transformation takes place. They stop feeling what each of them is feeling individually, and they start to feel collectively what the performer is feeling. So if the audience picks up from you that there is nowhere else on earth that you'd rather be than on stage talking to them, then they'll start thinking, hey, I'm having a ball listening to this guy or gal. But if, however, you go on stage thinking, Christ, let me get this over with, then your audience will be thinking, get this over with. So before each of your shows, I ask the comedians, what's the most important thing tonight? The answer is, have fun. So kind of corny, but again, something that I guess I have forgotten along the way. And the last bit, which I really like, in the beginning bits of advice, is to say no, right? There's this big thing about saying no. Let me read you this thing. So you're going to say no to people who ask you for a joke, because if you're doing it right, you're not going to have the kind of joke they're looking for. Your set will be composed of original jokes that are imbued with your persona, your point of view. These jokes will be carefully ordered so there's a flow. One joke contributes to the next. One joke is woven into the next joke to form a brilliant tapestry of comedy. You can't just pull out a thread for the tell me a joke guy. He probably won't get it without experiencing it in the context of your whole set. It's like asking someone who's a songwriter, oh, you write music, sing me a note. No! Tell him that you'd love for him to hear all of your jokes and give him the time, place, and cover charge for your next performance. And I was like, yes, I hate that. I'm still getting asked to do jokes. It's really annoying. If you're listening to this and you're not a comedian and you ask people to tell me a joke, don't do it. It's so frustrating. Every time I try to tell someone a joke, it's always in a social setting. I always get interrupted. There's always like a waiter that comes around. Everyone's trying to order a drink. Someone asks a question. Someone comes in and interrupts my flow. And then I tell my joke, and then everyone is just like, I don't really get it, or like it's not that funny. And I'm like, well, if you listen to the whole joke properly, it would be funny, but it's just not the right setting. So I totally agree, Stephen. Say no to joke telling. Stay strong. Don't tell them any jokes. I actually have a bit of a fake joke that I like to tell people that ask me for a joke. When people ask me, I go, okay, I'll tell you 3 jokes, 2 short ones and a long one. Ready? And then like, yeah. And then I'm like, joke, joke, joke. And then that's all I give them, because I don't want to be like giving out all my good material for people who aren't really paying attention and the context isn't right. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. It's a pretty thick book, but I'm going to try to get through it in a couple of videos. Next week, I'm going to talk about the different forms of comedy, and there's like about 8 forms, so I'm going to probably split it up into the next 2 videos. But thank you so much for watching. I'm really excited about sharing this book with you and what I've learned, so I hope to see you next week. Bye!